Happy Wednesday, happy Hump Day. Hope everyone's doing well. We have 11 inches of snow in Denver, so yeah, Eliana has the day off. It's going to be interesting. I'm not going anywhere. Um, I wasn't also going to cover this, but since whatever, and it seems to have escalated somewhat, I'm going to cover it. Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended from The View for 2 weeks over her comments about the Holocaust. Now, she was saying again, over and over again, that it's not about race. It's about man's inhumanity to man. And when Anna Navarro spoke up that, well, it's about white supremacy. It's about going after Jews and gypsies. Whoopi replied that these are two white groups of people. And she also said, you're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down to this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, or because black, white, Jews, Italian, everybody eats each other. So, of course, this was met by quite a bit of backlash because, well, obviously, Hitler, in his writings, and it's historically documented that the Germans regarded themselves as a superior race. And actually, that's actually something The View had yesterday, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, and he was talking about how, yeah, the Aryans believed that they were the master race, and everyone else was inferior. And so it literally was all about race. Now, Whoopi did apologize and walked back some of her comments. Of course, that didn't seem to be enough to keep her from being suspended, which some people are upset over. And I can kind of see that because it's hard to say because she apologized, but she was suspended, but other people have also apologized for bad jokes, things they did in the past, and their careers were canned completely. So, I mean, obviously people haven't been treated equally here, and they can't get rid of Whoopi Goldberg. I don't think they could cancel her. Now, I found it ironic that there was something Whoopi said where she said, but these are two white groups of people. And this kind of goes along with, and she's really saying exactly what she believes, because how often have you heard of the concept of, well, like white supremacy, white privilege, where everyone is grouped together just because they're white. I even spoke about how I was said to have been benefiting from white privilege because I'm married to someone who's white. And there was a book, I can't remember the name of the book. I'll post the link to it down below. But it was, I can't remember it. Oh my goodness. But the writer was talking about how, because he's Jewish, and he and his family immigrated to Europe. This was before Israel was formed, or rather reformed. And the thing that he added is that historically in Europe, because you have so many mountain ranges, so many natural barriers to travel, that each group literally had its own culture, in many cases its own language, many in their own race. You have the French, Germans, yeah, they're all, I guess, white. But if you tell a Frenchman and a German that they're exactly the same, you'll be beat up by both of them. A white person from France is not the same person as a white person from Boston. Two different races, two different cultures. It's Flashpoints, I believe, is the book. But yeah, I'll look it up and I'll post in comments or the description. The thing about what Whoopi said is that she really does believe that if you're white, you're all the same. That's the only way you can make that argument. It's about man's inhumanity to man, because if they're all the same anyway, it comes down to natural cruelty or humanity. It has nothing to do about race. But I mean, you can't say the same thing about black people either. A black person from the Bronx is not the same person as a black person from Kenya. Different language, different cultures. Yeah, they may look the same, but that doesn't mean that they are the same. And I mean, that's the problem. It's like, I mean, what she says is partially true from her own viewpoint, and ironically, what she says, black, white, Jews, Italians, everybody each other. That's something that Thomas Sowell pointed out when we talk about. He spoke about slavery, and he spoke about how blacks enslaved blacks, and Europeans enslaved Europeans, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. In fact, that's where slave, the root to slave is Slav, as in the people who live around the region of Yugoslavia. So those were people who were seen as inferior and were enslaved by Europeans. And I was at a birthday party for Eliana's friend's birthday party, and I was telling the dad, we got into a discussion about that somehow, and I was talking about how the African pirates at one time held more slaves than the Europeans did. So Whoopi is partially right. I mean, everybody does hurt each other, but it's not because they're exactly the same. And I mean, if you said, that all Asian people are the same, meaning, Chinese, Koreans, Japanese are all exactly the same, you would probably be called a racist because they're very different people in very different cultures. Well, it's the same way with the Jews versus the Germans, or the Black Americans versus true African Americans, say from South Africa or from Kenya. We may all look the same, but we are not the same race. We have different cultures, different languages, different everything. So that's why I found fascinating about this exchange. Now, should Whoopi have been suspended for 2 weeks? I don't know. Some people have pointed out that others have been canceled and had their careers wiped out for less. So, I don't know. Speaking of race, former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores sued the NFL and specifically 3 different teams, the Broncos, Giants, and Dolphins. He apparently had 2 winning seasons, according to what I was reading. It's the first back-to-back winning season since 2003 for the Miami Dolphins. But there's a lot of stuff there where he was interviewed with, and obviously, and it was he, and this involved the Broncos, where he was interviewed. Elway and a couple other folks show up with, they were disheveled. I think he said they were drunk too. And it was essentially something where they interviewed him just so they could say that they interviewed different people, but had no intention of hiring him. Apparently part of this is that he was offered $100,000 to throw each game that he coached over. And of course he didn't do that, and that's why they had back-to-back winning seasons. Racial discrimination. Wait, I thought this was the organization that supported Black Lives Matter and let people kneel before football games and such. I thought they supported black people. Oops. Moving along, truckers, the Freedom Convoy, currently engaged in a standoff with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Now, not standoff as in weapons, they just had things blocked. They, apparently, the Mounted Police had essentially taken some of their folks, were holding some of them, and they asked for them to be released before they opened lanes so that people could travel back and forth across the border and get into and out of a town that they were blockading. Yeah, they're still in and around Ottawa. This seems to have no end in sight. Again, there was some interesting commentary on Tim Pool's, he calls it Timcast IRL in real life. And so he is interviewing Jack Brsovic, and I forget the lady's name. He's interviewed her before. She lived under the Mao regime, and she's now here in the U.S. But there was a fascinating discussion, and they were talking about how, like the truckers, the truckers, of course, are amongst the most important backbone for transporting goods back and forth through a lot of countries. The fact that they are just now standing up and doing stuff now kind of shows how patient they've been and how much they've been trying to work through the system. And I'll add that, how many times were we told during, say, another specific protest that went on, say, a year and a half ago, that when people in government don't listen, that you have to take extra measures. And yeah, there were, of course, riots and burning of property, but the peaceful protests, we were told that, well, this is the way you do things. This is the way that you're heard, and you should sit down and stop complaining or you're racist. And now you have a group that's doing the same thing, and because they're doing it, they're being called racist. So yeah, interesting. Also interesting, Quebec has scrapped plans to tax anyone who is unvaccinated. They were actually going to levy a tax for everyone who didn't get the vax, and they were also laughing during the podcast that, well, I wonder what's been happening that Quebec decided to back down and not tax unvaccinated people. So yeah, apparently, yeah, peaceful protesting works. We heard it from Dr. Martin Luther King, didn't we? Yeah, so we'll see. Again, it's been largely peaceful, despite the smearing that you've seen from various outlets of the mainstream media and various folks in the Canadian government. There was also a rather snarky member of the conservative member of Parliament who pointed out that the same person, Justin Trudeau, who was calling the truckers, many of whom are minorities, racist, also wore blackface on more than one occasion. So she was saying it's rather ironic that Justin Trudeau would be calling the truckers racist. So yeah, there's probably going to be more to come. Washington Redskins, there's been leaked images indicating that their new name will be, okay, they just dropped Redskins a while back. They're going to be known as the Washington Commanders. We'll see if that's true. Apparently there's still some discussion about that. Also, Axios reported that they've obtained a leak memo from August 14th in the White House Situation Room, where they were trying to work out how they're going to evacuate all their folks from Afghanistan. There are a whole bunch of things in that memo, including, well, because Afghanistan is so far away, you just can't fly from Afghanistan straight to the U.S. If you're going to bring people home. You have to leapfrog through different either neutral or allied countries. And they were trying to figure out which countries to have as intermediary bases on the 14th. Now, for those of you who may have forgotten, because I had to look it up as well, the Taliban entered Kabul on the 15th. So in other words, we were not really doing the planning and logistics to actually get people out of Afghanistan until we realized, oops, the Taliban are entering Kabul. Maybe we should have evacuated everyone. This contradicts, of course, the narrative from the administration that they knew this was coming and they were ready to evacuate. No, they weren't. Not if they were planning to evacuate everyone. In fact, a member of the CIA, I think it was the CIA, who Axios interviewed, more or less said that we saw this coming, we warned the administration, and no one got back to us until the morning of the 15th when the Taliban were entering Afghanistan, is the quote. So, yeah. We knew it was bad, and now we have confirmation that essentially, unfortunately, the administration had no idea what they were doing. But they were prepared. And so, yeah, take from that what you will. All right. Y'all take care. Have a great day, and I will see y'all later.